Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This is the Year, and at the same time, episode 31. Today, we again have a roster of topics prepared for you guys in the audience. We're talking about some new models that have actually been released, and the ChatGPT conundrum around it producing Erotica. We'll deep dive into that, and also, I think a really big topic from the last episode we want to continue is the human to AI interface. Also, with me today, João, you have some other topics prepared. Good to see you again. How is Lisboa?
Doing good, thank you. The weather's fine. The AR market is still pumping.
Also fine.
It might be a bubble, might not. You have to wait and see for our financial corner eventually to get a good look at it. But we do have some interesting topics coming up. I mean, if you want to get started, like the Antrophic has released the 4.5 haiku. So for the ones that are not following up on the cloud lineup, they always have three models, or they used to have three models, which was like the lightest one, haiku, the medium one, sonnet, and the biggest one, opus. And usually people love opus, like being the biggest, most expensive, also most capable one. With this new lineup, they released the sonnet first, like 4.5 sonnet, and I think it was like more than, a month now. And now we have 4.5 haiku. And people are saying, and the same thing happened when they were doing the 3.5 lineup, where 3.5 sonnet was pretty good back then. 3.5 opus, or in this case, like 4 opus, was also, like, people were pleased with it. Haiku was filling a market that no one really cared, because Anthropic is consistently releasing this lighter model way later than the other, like, rest of the lineup. And people, like, usually these lighter models compete for being the cheapest per token. So, like, you use it for simpler tasks, you use it for summarization in the middle of a pipeline. Like, you can have some LLM calls, and they're fast and they're cheap, and you can use them most inexpensively, right? You don't need PhD level LLMs for every single task. The thing is, we've been talking about the open source models. We've been talking about, like, the market for cheap models is incredibly crowded right now. We have, like, the DeepSeeks, the GLM, like the Kimi models from Moonshot. We have so many models, like, and they're very capable models for very cheap, that Anthropic is just not entering that price range. And which leads us to the second topic. And I'll let you take it from there. But Anthropic, as a business model, has been consistently not gone for being the cheapest one. So they intentionally market their models a bit more expensive. They're not as strong in the private sector, so people are not using the cloud desktop as they use ChatGPT, because Anthropic's business model is about business use. So companies building these AI agents, they use cloud. Cloud is very capable for it, but private people don't really care, and Anthropic is fine with it. I think they're training their models especially for coding, which is amazing at coding. They're training the models for business use. And I think even if you go see the release page for the models, what they advertise is not how friendly it is. Like you see on Twitter, like ChatGPT and OpenAI saying, like, the personality of ChatGPT 5 is amazing. They care about how good it is at financial modeling, at biomedical research, at, like, doing sales pitch, at, like, the right tone that you want it to. They're not marketing the personality. I don't think they're focusing on that.
I think, what they're usually doing, right, is where you get more probably margin to it. If you have a premium product for a B2B market, like, for example, you were mentioning, maybe just to elaborate on that a little bit, what I'm mostly curious about is this deep reasoning, which again, they can charge a significant amount of money. We quickly alluded to the notion last week that yes, you can do up to 30 hours autonomous reasoning. If you want or do not want to do that is out of the question here. But it's certainly something that will eventually give Anthropic the capability to, again, have a business model that is specified for highly complex use cases like financial modeling, risk modeling, something we've been testing very actively since it came out, but also maybe some biomedical engineering, or even technical engineering topics. Something that I actually didn't mention last time as well, Joao, is is the notion of, it's actually not that novel, the idea of having basically an interaction with a particular modeling engine via parameterization. So if you think about, for example, into chip design or some other engineering topics, first, you as an engineer, you're coming up with all these parameters, you might be running some smaller experiments. Once you have the setup ready, you engage a modeling engine. Back in the pre-AI days, that was a different engine. Now it's just an LLM engine. And then you let it run. You let it simulate this particular output, and it might actually run a day. A really good friend of mine, he works for an advanced company in also associated to data center engineering. And they're actually doing these simulations, even in the pre-AI world. And I've just having a chat with him actually before the podcast. And it just, again, it's no different now with large language models, the way we interact with them. We need to parameterize it. We talked about that multiple times, Joao. You have to context engineer it well, maybe 4 or 5 interactions. The LLM comes with a proposal. You go back. It comes back with a second iteration. It goes back. And then maybe after the 4th or 5th question and an answer back and forth, you then initiate the deep reasoning for 20, 30 minutes, or maybe an hour or 24 hours. I know you're not a fan of 30-hour reasonings, but I was just alluding to the fact that it's not that different to the engineering world today. But the big difference is it's not engineering anymore. It's financial modeling, it's risk modeling, it's biomedical modeling, or any other complex coding engineering task that's now being autonomously executed by an agent via tool callings, via validations, and via quality gates. I think that's really the shift we see. So that's basically the update on Claude, just from a testing perspective. Yeah, sorry.
We talked about it a few months ago, that these major providers were all going for frontier model. We're all going for having the best model possible. And they're all trying to time the release of the models against each other to be top one. And if they could sense that they wouldn't be the top one, they would delay the model and try to improve a little bit, like the benchmarks a little bit, so that whenever they release it, they were number one. And we said, even back then, that they cannot all be number one. And it's a very hard space. And it's very tough competition to be in. There's $1 billion market to be the number one provider. And so eventually they'll have to find niches and specific markets they have to target. And Anthropic, we've been seeing, has been targeting mostly the B2B market. So a model made for business use cases, a model made to create agents with. And on the other side, we're having ChatGPT and we're having OpenAI, that it seems like they're still having frontier models, but they're targeting mostly the B2C client, the B2C market. They're going after selling them the model, the model's personality directly to clients. And I think that's where this new thing OpenAI announced comes in, about allowing more erotica content on ChatGPT.
Maybe I can put the tweet on the screen here. I think many people that I'm engaged with in the AI building community or the AI education community, so these are the both worlds that I'm usually engaging with, some researchers or some builders. I think nobody saw that coming. I have no idea how they actually made this product decision to include features. Once again, on the screen here, it's around these eroticas. To be honest, I personally don't know how this is going to be evolved. If it's going to be on the image generation, that is just basically
I think that'd be too risky.
Probably that's too risky.
They'd be setting themselves up for some very heavy lawsuits.
For some PR issues, especially because the training on that particular image set would be probably done on particular platforms. I don't want to mention them here, but or this video might be flagged. But again, if it's not the image generation or even the video generation, which could be probably even more dramatic, it might just be the textual one that Grok has had in this dirty mode or whatever it was called since it came out anyway, in terms of textual generation. So these are the vectors that we are talking about. There is many buzz around that. As you always mentioned, Sam Altman is a great marketer. But to many, I would say, more serious researchers, more serious educational use cases, like, for example, building a learning application with the OpenAI stack because it's maybe more advanced in textual understanding. I don't know if that's actually a really good move in terms of feature development, especially if it alludes to the fact that they're going down this road, whereas, for example, Gemini and Anthropic maybe don't. because Grok is anyway a little bit on the buzzing side. So they're trying to go into new waters. Also, maybe I would like to get your take on that as well, Joao. Is they're listening to the customers, and this is an incredibly large market where, unfortunately, nowadays, I have my personal opinion, but my business opinion as well, is it's an addictive industry, and I don't know if we should allude to the fact that we were building AI models to then populate this already addictive industry into AI models. I'm not a personal fan of this particular feature. I don't know what you believe.
I mean, opinions aside, I think it is inevitable. Just for the sole reason that there's money to be made there. And XAI marketed Grok as being like the outcast, like the insane mode, adult mode.
Insane mode,
like
dirty
the LLM,
mode.
You could ask anything. Like people were getting recipes for napalm off Grok, like from the get-go, not even trying to jailbreak it or try to do any tricks. So, Anthropic going for business, Grok going for like being the outcast and more like being edgy. ChatGPT being, well, like I like to call it the Tupperware of AI models. So like the model like everyone talks about, even they use the word ChatGPT, even they're not talking about the platform ChatGPT. The thing is, they have, I need to check the numbers, but millions of weekly active users. And they're bleeding money. They have to. I mean, running these models is expensive.
It's already 1.45
Most people are not.
5 billion, actually. Like they're in the billions now. The weekly active, I don't know, but the monthly active are in the billions.
So yeah, I mean, I imagine that it's getting increasingly more expensive, and most people are not paying for it. So they don't want to force people to buy, otherwise people will find free options, and they'll just open the market up for new competition. And so what they did is, okay, let's just grab more and more of the market, make it more addictive, so that they have a very solid foothold on like the users, so they can actually jump the prices, make people and convert people into paying subscribers. I mean, I think the Erotica feature was always present. I mean, it's trained on the internet. The internet has at least half of it is edgy content, so to speak. So they were actively disabling that feature. So they just have to enable. They have to be very careful though. They don't want to. I think it's a PR thing. They don't want to sell this model and have people worried that when they're using it, ChatGPT or GPT models for business cases, as a builder, I don't want to have to worry about it somehow being a bit edgy towards my clients, because my agents and my platforms are not for Erotica, at least not yet. It's not that kind of platform.
It's a good idea. When I saw it, just to jump on that notion quickly, Charles. I mean, they released a particular fine-tuned version of GPT-4o, I think, or GPT-5 for biomedical research, basically. So they have these Yamanaka factors. They're around stem cell research, and they have a separate model for that, for it to be only used by researchers. And I do believe, just from a product feature perspective, it's not the smartest, and maybe feel free to drop a comment, engineering decision to include Eroticas in the main model, where again, you're deterring a lot of builders from that, and they maybe have to be like incredibly careful in guardrailing that, as opposed to building a separate model, some above 18 model, whatever you want to call it, that has this particular feature. You can access it separately from the UI, and you don't have to worry about API calls to GPT-5, and then again, you have to do all this guardrailing. I do believe it's more of a niche use case that we should not be promoting. This is my personal decision. But you can maybe have a separate model, like you would go to a separate website. You don't go to YouTube to consume particular content. You go to these particular platforms to consume that content. And similarly, I would look into an AI that's not being this overarching super intelligence AI, but having specific use cases if they make sense. Because once again, we don't use Yamanaka research into our financial applications for investing or finance professionals. We don't need to do that as well. So we don't have to worry about it coming up with some sort of research outputs that we really don't need. Guardrailing becomes more complex. The PR becomes more complex for them, at least. And from even our perspective, we are using a model that has the potential to maybe output that stuff. I might as well just use another model. So I don't know if GPT-5, like this particular aspect of marketing GPT-5 made it easier, or it's just a money decision. I don't know, Joao. I'm sure
it'll make them a lot of money, but also imagine it will enable more builders to build like other kinds of agents and other kinds of services, because again,
we saw
tech
that
sells,
coming.
so there'll be platforms and there'll be role-playing agents and a whole new kind of platforms that will arise from these kinds of features. So yeah, some builders will be a bit put off by the possibility of it, although I imagine the guardrail get pretty tight. But I'm seeing in the very near future these kinds of platforms, and there already are some that will promote this not safe for work content, because it is very appealing to the consumer to have like this very this customized experience. I mean, that's what OnlyFans was made of, like this one-to-one interactions. And now you can have that, and you can scale it pretty inexpensively. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could even do that before with Grok. So that's why I don't really know if, from a builder perspective, if you would use GPT-5 stack just for that, maybe, and maybe not Grok. From the regular B2B perspective, I'm becoming increasingly more of a fan of Anthropic these days, especially because they're also, and that's maybe the last topic before we wrap up, they also just announced this week this is fairly brand new capability that Claude Sonnet 4.5, the newest and second best model usually in the lineup, is now capable of rendering and creating advanced files, for example, Excel files. Again, really, really important if you do risk modeling, financial modeling, or any other Excel type work, which is like tremendous, the opportunity, and also PowerPoint and Word documents. What I noticed in 1 week of fairly intense testing, forget PowerPoint currently and forget Word. Actually, Word is okay. PowerPoint is completely not okay yet. And Excel is really the one that I would say will enable business use cases to be built on Sonnet 4.5, with data integrity being in a particular region you would want it to be inferenced. So that's incredibly big if you can engineer that, and just make it as good as possible. We talked multiple times offline, Joao, around that. How do you interact with this modeling component in a way that you don't waste too much tokens on the compute, because it's quite heavy? Building an Excel model on Sonnet 4.5 takes between 15 to 20 minutes deep reasoning. So you have to spend a lot of the compute and tokens on it. So you really have to be 15 times sure that the input going into the modeling is very well and granularly engineered. And also you might have quality gates, quality checks along the way of it engineering the Excel model. So it really opened a new space of context engineering targeted for Excel modeling. Again, Sonnet 4.5 also enables a new way of prompt engineering these Excel models, and then also validating the Excel models. I think this is probably the most underlooked feature that we've seen on the Anthropic lineup, just in AI in general, maybe in October 2025. And certainly it was pushed very high up our product feature map because of that particular release. So that's my last rambling. And maybe, I don't know, Joao, if you want to have any other notion on this or another topic before we wrap up.
I really do wish that companies didn't rely as much on Excel as they do.
It's just a fact.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a fact. I've seen Excel being used as a single database for an entire company stack. I've seen it being used to create like very advanced financial models. So Excel, I mean, people do games on Excel, like with the cells and the colors. So Excel being as widely used as it is today, the models will just integrate with pretty much everything. And that's something we almost mentioned last episode, which is OpenAI also announced that they would be integrating with Figma, and they would have this agents feature where their ChatGPT and their LLMs will integrate more and more with more apps. I think Anthropic's also doing that, integrating now with Excel and I think eventually PowerPoint and Word too. But the road to the future, or the very near future, the roadmap for these models is to integrate with as many possible softwares as possible. I think a very long time ago, Elon Musk tried to market XAI, or in this case X, the app, as the one-stop app for everything. You could have payments there, you could have DMs there, you could have your email, like everything should be made available through the app.
This one global app, basically.
Yeah, and I think that was, a very ambitious idea and very hard to pull off, having a normal app. But now what we're seeing is having ChatGPT or having these LLM apps as the one-stop app for everything. And it is very interesting to see like where this is going. But I know I have no idea where we're going with this. And I think up until the end of the year, we'll see even more integrations.
I mean, we had MCPs, we had tool calling possibilities, but really a true integration of a great Excel modeling engine, I just haven't came across with many of the builders I usually I'm talking to. They're mostly were focusing on PowerPoint because it's like the creative output of a consulting agency or a consulting company. There were startups being built around that. But I think in surrounding the Excel modeling capabilities of models, I just have not yet seen something super specific because, again, the Copilot of Microsoft is a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. Any last topics, Shro? Or we are good to go for the week. Again, large releases, Erotica on GPT-5. That might be positive or negative. Anthropic Haiku, Sonnet 4.5 capability to run Excel modeling and other file types, fairly straightforward with 15 to 20 minutes reasoning, and this new way of interacting with agents that is, again, giving a lot of input before, and then the agent goes off and does a particular complex task like we've seen in the engineering world before. Any other last comments? Is this still the year for AI, Shua, or we passed the year?
I mean, this has been the year for AI. The next year, I think, will also be the year for AI until the bubble pops, and I don't think it'll happen anytime soon.
And then we're past the year.
Yeah, we're gonna have very, very productive years to build things on top of AI or just integrate it with AI.
Excellent. I think it's a good notion to wrap up. Today, we don't have a finance corner. Usually we give also some updates on the stock market, but currently we are a little bit in a finding zone. If we are topping up on an all-time high, or there might be a correction happening. Certainly in the future episodes, if you're completely new to the channel, we are usually deep diving into all these engineering and building topics. We've been in the field for multiple years, so we're trying to share this particular notion. Also, I'm trying and really aiming to produce more tutorials. For example, one will be coming on Versal V0, building a very fast prototype that you can then easily dock an AI engine to it, show it to clients, get validated feedback, and maybe iterate on your first AI or native AI product. So stay tuned for these tutorials as well on the channel. And until then, see you in the next episode next week. Joao, thanks for joining from Portugal. And yeah, see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you next week.